Welcome to Cryptic Accounts, the podcast by paranoid people for paranoid people. I am Dennis Cheney, filling in for Pat this week because he's having some vocal issues, but I am joined by him. He's here.
Yes.
I did all the research and everything. He might just be a little quieter than normal, possibly. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm gonna try and take it easy on the voice. I don't know what happened end of last week going into 4th of July. Just my voice decided to stop working for a few days.
I think my theory that you were cursed by, what was her name?
Marina Abramovich.
Yeah, last week's. If you haven't listened to that, by the way, go back. It's a really good episode about a witch in the art community and political community. I think that she Googled her name, found our podcast, and put a hex on you, man.
That is very possible, and it may be what happened. I can't say it wasn't that.
Yeah, I mean, and I generally, if you can't say it's not something, I just go for the most outrageous explanation. Yeah.
I know you do.
That's why we started this podcast. No, we're facts-based here. Well, this week on the show, we're doing haunted archaeology.
Okay.
It's been quite a ride. I initially thought I was getting into studying like artifacts with ghosts in them and stuff.
Okay.
And I got into this book by author Heather Lynn, Dr. Heather Lynn, called Evil Archaeology. And it was just way deeper than I expected. It's really good. I have not finished it, but I plan on finishing it, just for my own personal pleasure and knowledge after this. She's a historian, describes herself as a renegade archaeologist. She has a really interesting body of work. It seems like she hadn't been active that long, but she's like really prolific. Like on her website, you can just download 2 of her books for free. Not including this one, but she's done a lot of work. So I started getting into what I would call haunting archaeology because it's just very disturbing archaeology. And that led me to a bunch of other research. And so I just want to tell you some spooky tales tonight, Pat. We're gonna get back to spooky tales, and not all of them are, but let's start in Germany, because I found that a lot of these kept going back to Germany for what, like a lot of
Okay.
As an archaeologist, working in the field may include long days of monotonous sifting, or worse yet, surveying. However, there are some days that you encounter things that are so horrific that you wish you could go back to the lab just to scrub off the potsherds. Some of these discoveries could convince even the most ardent skeptic that evil does exist, and perhaps demons do too. And we begin with a story from the Neolithic period, which is a long time ago in Europe. It's the Stone Age. A team of European archaeologists has started the excavation of a massive bone pit, the latest in a series of Stone Age discoveries that reveal gruesome evidence of carnivorous feast. The naked bones show traces of scratches and scrape marks consistent with meat removal. Some bones are charred, and others, such as vertebrae and long bones, fractured so that the prehistoric human fingers could have probed their insides to extract nutritionally dense marrow. We were eating ourselves.
Okay, so we were going for bone marrow in the Neolithic period. Cool.
We were slaughtering people and cooking them and eating them.
So people have always just kind of been the worst.
Germans have.
Wow. Taking your stance early on, Dennis. All right, then.
This mass grave from more than 7,000 years ago was uncovered near present-day Herxheim, Germany, and has confirmed what many archaeologists have long suspected. It appears that Neolithic farmers in Central Europe were likely to have engaged in regular acts of systemic violence and cannibalism. The site has revealed the expertly butchered bones of at least 500 humans, and that's a lot for 7,000 years ago. I don't think we usually find bodies from that long ago.
So they were efficient, is what I'm hearing.
They were efficient with their cannibalism and killing people. And this is we'll just keep going. And researchers believe that the number could easily end up being twice that when more of the site is further excavated. DNA analysis of some of the remains shows that the victims were migrants from other areas of Europe.
Okay. Yep. So just man, just we have like 5 themes as human beings, and we just keep on repeating those. It doesn't matter how far we come.
That turns out Germans 7,000 years ago killing people from France, eating them, mass graves.
Well, I'm just assuming they were foreigners, so that made it like okay to eat them. Like we don't know them. That's not familiar, so
that
that's
tends
okay.
to
That's
be,
okay to
yeah,
eat.
that tends to be the theme. And
That's not my family, so I can eat them.
yeah, I think that's every human has that somewhere in their DNA a little bit. I think
I
probably.
have family members I would eat way before I would eat other people.
Well, that's because we've evolved a bit in culture.
Yes, I do like to think that's my evolution showing through that I would now eat family members as opposed to strangers.
It kind of is actually. I mean, isn't there even a line? Didn't Jesus even say like you have to leave your mother and your father? Like,
You have to hate your father and your
yeah, they
mother.
hate your father and mother, but the greatest love is to lay down your life for a friend. So we have evolved. Some of us have evolved. And she goes on to write that she believes religious elements actually drove these people to undertake arduous walking journeys. Now, this is what's messed up. This does not appear to be a battle, okay? This is not like we're going to go out and get those French people and we're going to eat them. Somebody made them take arduous walking journeys of many hundreds of miles to this one tiny hamlet as some sort of ritualistic pilgrimage. Many theories exist about just who the dead were, but so far, no evidence has been discovered to solve the mysteries of how so many non-native people could have ended up on the menu of a small Stone Age village. Some archaeologists have proposed that the victims were not eaten after all, but were simply stripped of their flesh as part of a vicious ritual. But the evidence kind of looks differently than that. That idea just seems as preposterous as the hypothesis that human bones bore the same marks as those on butchered livestock. None of the bones showed any malnutrition, poor health, or wounds. Some bone fragments were from infants, stillborn babies, and even unborn fetuses, and the majority of others were from older children, women, and some men. Marks
Ugh.
on many of the, I know it's gross. Marks on many of the bones seem to indicate that flesh was flame charred on skewers. Carbon dating shows the village only lasted approximately 50 years before it either collapsed or was abandoned. It appears to the author that this site may have been a small village populated by a powerful group of shamans or warriors who exacted a heavy toll of volunteer human sacrifices. Man, so you got
Yeah.
people from France marching into Germany. They're not malnourished. They're just coming to get murdered and eaten in this one small, tiny. It's just very bizarre. Uh,
I don't think they. I'm gonna go. I don't know, but I don't feel like even though they weren't malnourished, I don't know that they walked there willingly. Like maybe the first group did, but then the jig was up. I feel like. Like I feel like may have been some sort of sacrifice, but much like we feed our cattle well and whatnot before we eat them. Like I mean, you're not gonna
yeah.
send
Yeah.
unfed people to get eaten. Like you want them to have some fat on them.
This is people farming.
Kind of is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, it's definitely like a Stone Age Holocaust.
To like appease some sort of an occult group, maybe.
Yeah, it had to have been a nominative group because it wasn't that big of a village. It didn't last very long. It probably was a thing that existed like for someone's lifetime. They just like set up shop to start eating the heck out of people.
I guess.
But and I did more research into this, and this is actually not that. This isn't like the first time they've basically found this exact thing in Germany.
Oh, there were more villages like this in Germany?
There's another one. There's another mass burial at a place called Schnarneck Kallenstadt. There's no way, even with a million years, I'll ever be able to pronounce this. It's another Neolithic mass grave, also in modern day Germany. Exhibits signs of deliberate mutilation and torture. Skeletal analysis of the interred remains showed a remarkably high percentage of broken leg bones. So they like come up and just break your legs and then go to town. And that's just like a completely separate site. Like there seemed to just be murder towns. Germany was just full of murder. That's why they were called the barbarians, I guess.
I guess. I mean, that makes sense. They definitely earned the title.
Yeah, and they do have when I researched more outside this book about the Herxheim spot, there was some evidence that it wasn't willing. There was like some deep trauma from like axes and stuff, like people being decapitated.
Nobody's going to get eaten on a regular basis willingly. Like maybe the first few groups, but eventually that rumor gets out.
They're like, hey man, you go to that town, you're gonna
when entire villages are just gone because they've all been shipped off to no.
Man, and we wonder 7,000 years ago. So that was over twice as long from like the life of Jesus and like the Roman Empire and stuff as like they are to us. So that's like some deep history to like be like crossing boundaries like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and also like you can kind of see why like these like insane legends probably still exist in like Europe, like vampires and like werewolves and stuff like that. Like, there's no way something like this happens to your family and you just like forget about it.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty sure ancient Egypt was rocking at this time too. So now moving up forward in time, also in Germany, or hailing from Germany, the Alken slaughter. Around the time of Christ, an army of nearly 400 Germanic barbarians were gravely defeated in a battle by a mysterious and powerful adversary. The mutilated remains of men, mostly aged between 13 and 40, were discovered well preserved in a sprawling peat bog near Alken on the shore of Lake Moso in Denmark's Jutland Peninsula. In 2012, archaeologists began to remove the catalog the adult male bodies and parts, and they've been able to determine that this carnage likely occurred in a single day of savage warfare. Roman accounts of the wild barbarians of Germania offer us little detail about the sizes of the tribes. The Roman Empire's northern frontier was nearly 200 miles south of the Danish lake turned bog where the remains were discovered. So we could reasonably assume that the vanquished were likely defeated by a rival Iron Age Germanic tribe. The bones that have so far been recovered paint a picture of tribal brutality that defies imagination. Traumatic injuries and mortal wounds, such as missing limbs, crushed skulls, were the result of heavy blows from swords, axes, maces, and other weapons. Researchers from the Skanderborg Museum studying the remains in attempts to better understand the sequence of events that led to the bloodshed have made an important breakthrough. Based on their finding, it appears that the battle scene may have been revisited by visitors sometime later. And this is, I'm just going to stop reading, just describe it to you. I got into some other news articles about it.
Okay.
Basically, when these Germanic tribes would like, they were mean dudes, man. When they would go through and like slaughter each other, and they wouldn't just kill you, they'd like keep messing you up. They would apparently just like leave you there and then come back like a year later is what they think. And then like collect all the bones and then do something with it and then throw them onto like a mass grave in like a bog, like covering up
That's weird.
It is very weird. And you know, because it's like, well, but that's not like really, I was trying to think of alternative explanations, but there's really no way, because they could tell that like these things were basically eaten by animals before anyone disposed of them. But it's also like they probably weren't having a fight like in a bog. It's just the thing they did was to gather up bodies and throw them all in bogs.
Can you imagine looking forward to a year down the road when you're going to go back to this place where you like had a battle and killed a bunch of people, and you're going to like sift through the bones and stuff and then move them somewhere else, and this is like a thing you're looking forward to?
Yeah, like they say it's obviously, or at least this author believes it's obviously some sort of pagan ritual. Otherwise, I mean, like, why would you do that? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. But yeah, Germanic tribes be weird, man.
I guess so.
And this is not the only time we found People in bogs. In the peat bogs of Europe, archaeologists have found well-preserved victims of human sacrifices. Bog bodies, as they're called, are well preserved because of the acidity in the peat that covers them. Peat's a type of soil that's formed as a result of dead plants layering on top of each other, which creates these moss, basically. The soil becomes acidic, and as a result, the bodies of people in the peat are preserved. These bones, leathery skin, teeth, hair, and clothes that remain on these bog bodies are all conserved to varying degrees. According to Roman historians, the Celts sometimes sacrificed people to beg for fertility for their land and cattle. The Germans brought human sacrifice to the war god Odin, and in Sweden, people were offered as human sacrifices until as late as the 11th century. That I did not know.
That it was still happening until the 11th century?
Yeah, into the Middle Ages, up in Sweden with the Norse people.
Oh, I didn't know they were. I knew it was. I mean, I think human sacrifice is like always kind of happening to some degree somewhere.
Yeah, I just wouldn't think Europe in the Middle Ages, but I guess that's like northern. It's like the untamed Vikings people.
Yeah.
So in 1897, two workers who were out illegally burning peat discovered a human body in the Zwitvin peat bog near a village named Yiddy, Netherlands. This eerily well-preserved bog body terrified the men, who feared they might have unearthed a devil. But this was no demon. This was a teenage girl who had been in that bog for almost 2,000 years.
Kind of a demon.
Kind of a demon. Also, there's a picture of her that I put in the document that you can look at. She looks pretty freaky. They reconstructed her face.
Oh, all right.
She was found with a half-shaven head and a rope around her neck. The news about the body.
Oh.
Now don't.
The
not
little
the
red.
skull, not
the red-haired girl.
Yes.
Wow. I mean, I'm glad it wasn't like an actual body that I was looking at, but that's still like even this reconstructive computer painting or whatever is still. She's got a big forehead. She's kind of creepy looking.
Yeah, they think that might have played like part of the role
into why she got killed.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the theory.
The redheaded part or the big forehead?
A lot of, well, some
All
other
of
stuff.
it?
So I'll describe her. Yeah. So the guy who discovered her described her as having blue skin, which damage to the right cheek, open mouth, visible teeth, long reddish hair on the left of her skull, with the right head being clean shaven.
Ooh.
Known as the Yiddy girl, archaeologists later determined that parts of her body and clothing had been dug up by villagers, nearly all her teeth were stolen, and her hair was pulled loose for whatever reason after death.
I get the teeth part.
What are you gonna do with teeth?
People used to replace like their teeth with other people's teeth, like.
Right. Like George Washington.
I was gonna say there's some people that say George Washington did that to slaves.
Oh no, that's where he got his teeth. They're made out of elephant bone.
No, we always got told that he had wooden teeth, but I'm hearing more recently that that's kind of a whitewashing that got done to history. And actually, he took slaves' teeth.
Dang, son. Okay, I'll have to look into that.
Which makes a lot more sense than the wood teeth. I've always wondered about the wood teeth. I'm like, how are you chewing food with wooden teeth? How are you not getting splinters?
Yeah, that is kind of weird.
How are you not cracking them?
Have you ever seen his teeth?
No.
You can see them. They're online, and you can see them like museums and stuff. His dentures were gnarly, man. It was gnarly.
Are they wood?
It was some metal stuff. Some of it might be, but I think they did say like the actual teeth parts were like combinations of different things. Like some might be people teeth, some might be, I don't remember, but it wasn't all wood.
It was kind of a hodgepodge, like he was a lot of trial and error, and then
they would just use whatever the best thing available is, I guess. And I don't know. And then there's metal, and just the way it worked back then was you would like tie. It was kind of more like braces. Like the dentures weren't like fit to your mouth. They were like a combination of like metal. And you would like tie the metal around your few remaining teeth to keep everything in place. Yeah.
That sounds like a very poor system.
This is a very odd detour we've gone down here, but
yeah.
So in life, this Ford Yeedy girl was strangled as revealed by a wooden band with a slide button around her neck, etc., etc. Bad stuff. And now in the mid '90s, the University of Manchester, along with a forensic art, reconstructed the girl's face in striking detail, and the reconstruction shows that the poor girl could have looked like and bring her back to life. Now she also apparently had a spinal abnormality that would have caused her to limp, which could have meant that she was singled out in her community because of this defect.
Mm.
But do you really let people limp? Like, do you let them get like that old before you like murder them? I don't know. Just some evil stuff going on.
Well, she was how old?
It doesn't say actually.
But based on that picture, she doesn't look like she's much older than like 12.
Oh, she was 16. My apologies.
I mean, that is it. I guess that's making it pretty long back then to have had an abnormality.
Yeah, but it's also like if you were gonna put up with it, like that seems like a weird age to kill her. Unless you're just like, well, you're useless now.
Well, that or yeah, maybe it wasn't always that way. Maybe she matured to that. Maybe things went bad and they were looking for reasons why, and she got the blame.
Oh, that would make a lot of sense. Because if you think about like murder scenes and stuff like that, you don't normally just like keep beating on people and like stealing stuff off their body. Like that seems like a really hateful.
Yeah. Yeah, the going back to steal stuff was a little weird. Like
Yeah, I
her
don't get that.
teeth and hair.
I don't get this whole like going back thing. I guess you wait till the body's not gross. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
The past is messed up, man.
Yeah.
um, Now our final German story is a little more modern.
Okay.
Like the peat bog workers near the village of Yidi in 1897, people often report finding demon bodies. Until now, the technology to determine what these bodies really were did not exist. Thus, folk tales and legends ran wild, twisting and changing with every person through which they passed. Take, for instance, the mystery of the, quote, Nazi demon skulls. These skulls were found in a remote, and I'm not so sure I don't believe this, found in a remote cave on Mount Bolshatok in Russia in 2014. Two strange skulls were discovered in a forest to a site where a Nazi briefcase was found. With the briefcase was a map dated to 1941. The briefcase had the SS Annenbra insignia on it. The SS Annenbra was a secret Nazi archaeological research organization led by Heinrich Himmler. This is some real, like, Raiders of the Lost Ark stuff.
Yeah.
Members of the SS Annenbra were an elite group of archaeologists and scientists who were hired to look for information on human origins, the Aryan race theory, occultism, UFOs, and the paranormal. Given how close these skulls were to the Nazi artifacts, as well as the site's remoteness, people have speculated that the Nazis could have used this area to summon demons. Now look at the picture beneath the picture of the girl, dude.
Yeah, I see that. That looks like a demon.
And that is a real skull. This is a real scientific discovery.
Like, I don't know what, that doesn't look like any other type of creature.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's like almost iconically demon. It's really.
Yeah, it really is.
And that is how it was discovered. Like, this isn't like some like publicity campaign for Doom or something, but.
And honestly, I was gonna say, I know we bring up Doom a lot, but that really does look like a skull from a character in Doom. That looks like something you'd see laying around on the ground in the game Doom.
Yeah, for real. And I know Doom uses a lot of like iconography and stuff from like real Satanist stuff. So like it probably makes sense, but
Yeah.
it really is striking. I'm sure we'll put these photos up, and there's also an article attached to it, but it is like very striking how much it looks like a demon skull. Like this is a weirder skull than even like those South American ones where like the head's all elongated. Like this is very weird.
Yeah, this has got like art, like what would be like a place for like horns, essentially.
Yeah.
It's got
And
like two little rounded out nubs on each side of the top of the head.
it's like an elongated human face with a place for horns.
Yeah.
It looks exactly what people are probably imagining right now if they've ever seen like a
Yeah.
Baphomet or. So, as for the two unusual skulls, researchers have claimed they belong to neither animal nor human. The skulls are quite bizarre in appearance. They indeed resemble demons, as they have what appear to be large humanoid faces with huge eye sockets and two asymmetrical protrusions from which there are two branches to form horns. Additionally, the facial bone is flat. As someone who has studied, So this author says, as someone who has studied basically the study of bones and stuff, she can say from the photos that this is certainly not an intentional hoax. Now, what do you think the scientific explanation is for this?
Ooh. I mean, I'm assuming we're going to say it's some sort of primitive thing that evolved into something else, man or monkey, maybe. I don't feel like they're going to admit that this is like a demon skull.
Well, basically, from like live science and other stuff, as well as this author, the ongoing theory, and I tried and tried and tried. Nobody's done DNA tests on this thing. And
Oh, well, yeah, why would you want to do that?
I know, at least for it's funny. Science, they always talk about the scientists never get like enough publicity or enough attention or money or anything, and how there's all this like junk science and stuff. But then when like a mystery comes up like this, that would be super easy to just run a DNA test. And then you could have another article about how the scientists saved the day and they don't do it. Or they don't publish it. You know what I mean? It's just like a story like this pops up and then you never hear about it again.
Yeah, it's almost like they don't want the answer to that.
It almost is. Or they have the answer and it's like they figured out they can't figure out what it is and they're like, let's just not talk about it. It's just weird. Well, anyway, the theory is, and I'm not sure I buy it, is basically that these were people who died and then were put in like a bog or a marsh or something, and then their skulls got like part way destroyed or something, and basically this is just like a stretched out skull that got like damaged.
Well, that doesn't even sound like a sciencey explanation.
Yeah, right?
Have you ever heard of skulls getting stretched out over time? How come we don't see dinosaur bones where like all the bones are stretched out then?
Right. So
are we wrong about all the shapes of all the dinosaurs? Like, I realize you're not stating this, but I'm just saying to the science community, like, you gotta pick a side here.
Well, the alternative one is some people think it's a ram that was also in a river and it eroded.
That one's more believable, but still, it doesn't look like erosion.
It also is like super symmetrical.
Yeah, it doesn't look. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, how did it just? Okay, and there's two of them that are perfectly like that.
There's two of them that look like that. And yeah, that's the weird thing to me. Is it's like, okay, so let's say erosion happened. Like, why is it like both eyes are about the same size, both horns are about the same size? You know what I mean? Like, it's pretty symmetrical. Like, you'd think if it was just like random water and stuff, then.
Yeah, no, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not buying that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna jump to demon, but I mean, it might be demons. I don't know.
Oh, I'm leaning pretty hard towards demon looking at this picture.
Yeah, it looks really.
So far, you have failed me with science's explanation of what this is, so I'm going with demon. Science failed on this one.
Now, the weirdest thing is that, like, nobody's proven that briefcase is fake. So, like, keep in mind, there's this Nazi briefcase in Russia with like, the markings of, like, their occult people.
And it's there with the skull?
It's like very close to the skull. Like, they were discovered, like, in the same dig, basically. Like, it's not like the skull's inside the briefcase, but it's, like, it's around the area.
Now, the biggest question, what kills a demon?
Good question. A Nazi, apparently. I don't know. Maybe you
can
what's evil?
What's evil enough to kill a demon? A Nazi.
I know It's really weird. I looked into that.
It's Jesus can do it because he's so holy, or the Nazis because they're so evil. Those are the only things that can take out demons.
They also think maybe they're alien skulls. I don't know. Maybe they had the skulls.
I could also see that, and I was actually assuming that was going to be. I don't know if I said that, but that was another possible assumption.
That is a good question. I didn't even think about that. Why would the demons die? Like, they could have found these skulls elsewhere and brought them there to do a ritual, I guess.
Yeah. Now I got a bigger question of what's killing demons and how that works.
Nazis, I know. That kind of makes me wonder if it's not like UFO remains that
So
were
I'll be
brought
covering I'll be covering Constantine on the next episode of the podcast.
there. Not the Emperor Constantine, but
No, the demon hunter, the warlock or
what's
whatever.
his name? Yeah, exactly. The guy played by oh no,
Yeah, I
Neo. Yeah.
That's John Wick.
He also played Constantine.
Oh yeah, I guess he did, didn't he? Man, he plays all the good demon hunters, doesn't he?
Yeah, he was in The Matrix. Oh my gosh. Keanu Reeves.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you wanted the name. There you go. Okay.
So, yeah, the Nazis were weird about like skeletons, by the way. Like when I was researching this, I found another article that I'll include in that I don't, it's not really paranormal, but they were like on this weird skeleton hunt. There was this one skeleton in Prague that had been discovered in like the 20s. And like when the Nazis took over the city, they like seized the skeleton to like try to prove it was like an Aryan Viking. Like they would use these skeletons as like proof that they were like supposed to be that they had once lived there. So they would like travel around with like skeleton. I don't know. It's some weird stuff. The Nazis were weird, but
Yeah, Nazis didn't have a whole lot of normal stuff. They were like, yeah, you just don't hear. They were always just out on another one. They were.
well, who did
out-
they idolize? They idolized the people we were talking about earlier on in the show, the barbarian tribes and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That was the superior race.
Wait,
So,
that's the superior race?
well, like Nordic area, like the people who were still doing human sacrifices in the 1100s, and like Nordic people. I'm not even sure if the race they thought existed really existed, but they idolized that like Germanic, like pagan culture and stuff like that.
Okay.
Like in fact, I think Himmler wanted eventually to replace Christianity in Germany with the old like Norse gods and stuff. That was like part of his plan. Hitler kind of thought it was stupid, but some of the Nazis were into that stuff. They were spooky boys. So let's see. So the other stuff. So that's pretty much my Germany stuff, and then the other biggest one of spooky archaeological stuff is of course the classic. There are plenty of tales of Egypt, and she begins with the story of the pit of severed hands.
Oh.
Austrian archaeologist working in the hot Egyptian sun near Tel Abdaba, the present site of the ancient city of Avaris, recently discovered 2 severed right hands in shallow pits. This grisly find confirmed the validity of hieroglyphs and biblical verses that depict warriors cutting off their hands of their vanquished opponents. Egyptian lore prescribed the practice as proof of an enemy's defeat, with the severed hands exchanged like bounties for gold. So you could actually turn in your hands for gold.
What a time. Just carrying around a bag of hands trying to get paid.
So, yeah, I know. I got my hands. And this is not the first one. There's actually been other ones. Some of the scientists said that most of the hands are quite large, and some of them are very large. They're almost all male, they think. They're all right hands. There's no left hands. And the finds date back to Cairo about 3,600 years ago. And in fact, it wasn't actually the Egyptians, oddly enough, because it's so old. It's the Hyksos people, who were in fact Canaanites, and controlled part of Egypt and made their capital at Avaris, as it's known today. At the time that the hands were buried, the palace was used by a Canaanite king, King Kion, and the hands appear to be the first physical evidence from the ancient Egyptian writing and art in which soldiers would present the cut-off right hand of their enemy for gold. And I thought that was interesting that it's Canaanites, actually. I had never known that the Canaanites were like an like in northern Egypt, pretty much, like, or that area.
Yeah. They were all kind of pretty crammed back together back then. Like when you read about it, it seems like they're spaced out, but they're actually all really close together.
Yeah, they might have even been other Egyptian. They might have actually been Egyptian people's hands that got cut off by the Canaanites.
Well,
They're
think
just
of
all
how many just random hands got cut off on one's quest for gold, like on the way back. Like, why kill warriors when you could just get farmers on the way?
Oh yeah, I mean I'm taking hands. I'm taking all my hands, man. All hands on
Why do
deck.
all your hands look like children's hands in this bag, Dennis? Look,
They were small. They were an army of small people.
they all
Of
pay the
course,
same, right? They all pay the same, right?
of course, you'd probably have some like messing up to do, like when people discovered, like when a mad like peasants walk into the village and they're just like, "Excuse me, your man took my hands."
Well, you got to kill the whole peasant. You can't just take the hand, Dennis.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You gotta. Well,
Uh,
that's a good. Yeah, you're thinking like a Canaanite.
well, I'm part barbarian, Dennis. I don't know if you knew this. This has been kind of uncomfortable for me this whole episode.
You hail back to the barbarian days.
That's the
Now,
ancestry I claim.
now, what show on spooky archaeology would be complete without the curse of the pharaohs, Patrick?
I mean, I guess none. Or do we have
No,
a curse of spook? Do we have a curse of spooky pharaohs?
we have the curse of the
All
pharaohs.
right, perfect.
So, Highclere Castle, known to some as the set of Downton Abbey, has an interesting connection to the pharaoh's curse. It was the ancestral home of the fifth Earl of Carnarvon, a man who would pave the way to modern Egyptology, and in so doing pay a hefty price. Lord Carnarvon traveled to Egypt for the first time in 1909. He was weakened by a serious car accident, and his doctor advised that the damp English climate was bad for his health. So, like so many wealthy gentlemen of his era, he spent the winter in warm Egypt. There he discovered his passion for ancient civilizations and became involved in archaeological excavations. A few years later, he met Howard Carter. Carter had come to Egypt in 1891 when he was only 17 years old, and he worked as a draftsman for the Egypt Exploration Fund and eventually worked his way up to the Inspector General of Upper Egyptian Antiquities Administration.
Well, of course, that's a very, well-known career path.
That's the one that I love back in the day, how you could just like head out. Like, you're
Well,
like,
yeah,
well,
like
I'm 16 now. I'm going to go be a Egyptian guy.
yeah, and you could just basically show up and claim to be in a profession, and you were just in that profession.
Yeah, or there was just like so much manpower needed for anything, like ships and everything. Like they'd just be like, yeah, we'll take you. You could like
Pretty
learn
much.
the ropes, you know.
Yep.
But things did not go smoothly for Carter. A fight broke out between him and some drunken French tourist. When Carter was told he needed to apologize for his misconduct, he simply quit his job instead.
Like you do.
Carter became working as an artist, an antiques dealer, and tour guide until he met Lord Carnarvon. They became friends right away, and they both... See, that's the other thing, is how do you make friends with a lord? Like, you're just like this vagabond? As they both shared...
Well, I mean, he's an antique dealer,
That's
so
true.
maybe he met the Lord dealing antiques, because being an artist, maybe selling art, or maybe that Lord wanted to go on a tour one afternoon, and they just hit it off.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So from 1909 on, Carter was financially supported by the wealthy lord in his excavations.
Oh man, I need to find a wealthy Lord to support me.
That's what I'm saying. They're not just buddies. He's like financially supporting him. Like, I want Kanye West to like give me a bunch of money to go dig up some stuff in Roswell.
You should probably write an email. He might go
He
for
might
it.
actually
He
do
seems to
that.
be doing some little bit off kilter stuff lately.
Him, Elon Musk, give me some money. Carter made a few archaeological
Not the
discoveries.
way you've talked about Elon Musk.
Oh, don't bring that into this podcast, Patrick.
Anybody who knows from a long time, yeah, me and Dennis are gonna have an Elon debate at some point on this show.
Oh yeah, it's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
Carter made a few archaeological discoveries, but the biggest one was yet to come. In November of 1922, he made the discovery of his life, the almost untouched tomb of Tutankhamun, King Tut.
Oh wow.
The site was crammed with so many archaeological treasures that Howard Carter was only able to say wonderful things in an urgent message to the Lord, who had just arrived from England. Strange things happened on the day of the opening of the tomb, like a cobra that killed Howard Carter's canary. Interestingly enough, the cobra was a symbol of the pharaohs. A few months later, a mosquito in Cairo bit Lord Carnarvon. It became infected, and as his immune system was so weakened that he got pneumonia. In a feverish delirium, he screamed over and over that a bird was scratching at his face. Weakened by blood poisoning and an infection, he died at night in the hotel room in 1923. At the same time, all the lights in Cairo went out, and his dog Susie almost died at the manor house in Hampshire. That's freaky. Strangely, doctors who later examined the body of Tutankhamun found that he had a black spot on his left cheek in the exact same spot where Carnarvon had been bitten by the mosquito. Yet the curse does not end with the Lord's death. Lord Carnarvon's half-brother, Aubrey Herbert, died of peritonitis. Professor Loeffler, who studied the found treasures, also suddenly died. Archaeologist Hugh Evelyn White fell into depression and hung himself in 1924, and his suicide note read, "I have succumbed to a curse which forces me to despair."
That sounds like an Epstein right there.
Yeah, that's a total... That's a mummy Epstein. I think some mummy snuck in and got him.
I think so.
The scientist who x-rayed the mummy, Douglas Reed, also suddenly died. Egyptian Prince Ali Fahmy Bey was murdered in a hotel in London, and his brother committed suicide. Papyrus expert Bernard Grenfell and Egyptologist Aaron Imber died in 1926. The right hand of Howard Carter, Arthur Mace, died 5 years after the Lord. He suffered from symptoms that resembled an arsenic poisoning. In 1929, the wife of Lord Carnarvon died. Richard Beth.
Wait, we're just like a decade out now, just blaming all
No,
deaths.
just,
like,
yeah,
like his
I
wife
know.
dies, and we're just like, all right, well, I mean, how old was she? Anyway,
Yeah, I know.
that's a weird detail.
I know. This curse has grown in myth and legend. Now, in 1930, Richard Bethel's father committed suicide by jumping out the window of his apartment, which contained a vase from the tomb of Tutankhamun.
Okay.
Shocked by the number of deaths, so I'm going to assume this wasn't normal. A government official was sent to the grave to investigate the situation. He also became ill and died a few days
How
later.
did I know you were going to say that?
That's just like, that guy's like, I wasn't even involved in this. I'm just trying to figure out why these people are dying.
Nope, King Tut says you're dead.
King Tut says you came to the wrong place, buddy. In total, 17 people who can be directly or indirectly associated with the tomb of Tutankhamun died unnatural, strange, or early deaths within a few years.
Okay, this just further impresses on me. I don't know if you heard, like, I think it was like a month or two ago, we found a bunch of, like, tombs and stuff in Egypt, or a bunch more tombs, and they were talking about, like, opening them, and we don't need to do that this year. Like,
no, we need to keep that shut, man. Now, the only person who didn't seem to die from all this was the guy who actually discovered it, Howard Carter. He died of natural causes like 20 years later. So that, you know.
That's because he made some sort of a deal with King Tut.
Yeah, he did. Or either that or King Tut's like, you know what, man?
We're cool. I appreciate you opening me up. I'm going to get everybody else around you, though.
Exactly. And there's all kinds of theories. I think maybe the Egyptians...
Well, I mean, the Lord did love Carter. Maybe Tut met Carter, and he's like, you know what? Have some of my riches. I just want to support your career.
I like you. I don't like your rich friends.
I mean, maybe. I mean, it's not like this isn't the first time Carter has wooed people in positions of power that we can't understand why.
That's true. So that's essentially that's the rundown of the famous. I thought that was interesting because I had never actually read about the curse of King Tut. And you're right. Some of those people were dying like straight up a decade later.
Yeah, I'm like, okay. Like I gave you like the first 5 years of deaths. I'm like, all right, well, I mean, that person was connected. But when we start getting out to people that, if the wife was going to die, why did she why was it like 8 years later that Tut decided to exact his revenge on this random woman who was just married to a guy?
Yeah, there might be more to it. Maybe we'll do a
Unless she was
show.
wearing some of the jewelry from the tomb or something.
Well, apparently you can just keep a vase like in your hotel room at the
That's
time.
what I'm saying. Like maybe there was something. Maybe I would need more details like that. If you could name like one piece of something from his tomb that was in all these places that people died, I think you might be able to win me over on this.
All
But
right,
for the most part, you got me.
I might try to win you over. I think the sad part is all these extra deaths obscure the Lord one, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, that one was very weird. Like bit by a. First of all, I was upset, but I'm just like, man, can you imagine getting bit by a mosquito and just dying? I realize it still
It
happens
kills
today,
you.
but it's not like a normal thing. Like that was that it got explained like just as a matter of fact thing that happened regularly. Like, well, you get bit by a mosquito and then 2 weeks later you die.
Right, a mosquito on the part of his cheek where King Tut had the birthmark, and then the lights went out in Cairo, and then his dog died in London at the same time. I think is what it said. That's pretty freaky. But the other ones, I don't know. I don't know.
Also, this is all happening right around the time. I guess this starts as after the Spanish flu and stuff. I was just gonna never mind.
Yeah.
I was really worried that King Tut had come out like right before the Spanish flu started, and we were gonna have some other layer.
Oh, great.
A
I didn't even think about that.
hundred years ago was just not a good time for just most things.
No, it was a hard knock life, but it was better than back when they throw you in a bog and like eat you.
Well, that's true.
If anything, this is a hopeful episode because history just keeps getting better.
Does it?
I
Does
don't know. In some ways, yeah. I mean, you,
Anyway.
anyway, I will leave you with maybe the most modern one from Egypt. And this one, I've actually included a video that's going to go in the show notes. And it made headlines. A lot of people might remember this, but it became known as the rotating Egyptian statue.
Hmm.
At a Manchester museum in Britain, a 10-inch ancient Egyptian statue dating from around 1800 BC was seen and even recorded moving on its own. The statue of Neb Sinu was found in a tomb next to a mummy. She performed the role of a kind of offering to one of the main gods of the ancient Egyptian pantheon, Osiris. Every night, the statue would move unassisted. Every day, workers would find that the statue had rotated 180 degrees without anyone's help. The staff would move the statue back where it belonged, but still they would find it turned and facing the wrong direction. And there is video of this, and
Really?
it is encased in glass.
Really?
I mean,
I haven't seen the video, so I trust you on this. Do you believe the video?
yes.
Okay.
The
Then I'm a little freaked out right now.
There's this mainstream news. It was like on ABC News and stuff, which I think is who I linked to.
Okay.
The museum decided to set up a video surveillance to see if they could solve the mystery, but to their surprise, they found that the figure, which stands behind a window of glass, did indeed move by itself. The video footage has gone viral and can be found online on a number of platforms. When asked to explain, the curator said, in ancient Egypt, they believed that if the mummy is destroyed, then the statuette can act as an alternative vessel for the spirit. The hieroglyphics on the back of the tomb where the statue was discovered asked for bread, beer, and meat, presumably in case it came to life. That's probably, you know what? I'd probably ask for something similar if I came back to life.
That does actually sound like exactly. I think you actually I have a note from you that says
Pick
that
up
you
bread,
want
beer,
the-
and meat.
Yeah,
I
on the
want
way
a
to your
sandwich
funeral,
and a beer, basically.
like bury you with it.
Perhaps that's why the statue moved. It was possessed by the spirit of that once inhabited the mummy. So,
That doesn't explain why it's turning around though.
well, you're a statue. I mean, how far are you gonna get, man? You don't have legs. Like they should have thought about this when they made the statue.
That's true. Well,
Now,
it's a pretty big feat for a statue to turn around on its own though. I'm
yeah,
just saying like what is the I'm curious like and I know we don't know, but like what is behind the statue? Is that towards like a kitchen maybe? Is there beer and meat and bread in that direction? Like
I
I'm
don't know.
joking, but I'm also kind of serious.
That would be
Like
interesting. Well, they think they solved this. And actually, I'm going to leave it up to you. We can make the listeners go and figure it out on their own, or I can just go ahead and say, we could end here, and we could end with the mystery of the rotating statue, or I could just go ahead and ruin it.
No, I mean, you've already come this far. Explain what you
Okay.
did the research. Don't do all this and then be like, all right, guys, now you go figure it out.
Hey, it's a mystery. Well, it's cryptic accounts, not
Well,
everything.
well, I, well, I mean, they can still go. Well, I mean, there's still plenty of stuff they could go back and look into on this. I want to know, Dennis. Tell me.
Okay.
I don't want to research. Just tell me. Feed it to me.
They took out the statue, they looked it over, and they found that there was a small convex bump on the bottom of the statue.
Okay.
And so they hypothesized that the rumbling from buses and traffic and all the foot traffic and everything, basically, like, it was just indistinguishable to the human eye. It was kind of sitting up at this bump, and so it wasn't perfectly level, and it would like turn around 180 degrees.
Well, that's disappointing.
Well, I gave you the option to keep the mystery alive, and to make matters worse, there really isn't a mystery. They actually affixed like tape to the bottom of it, and it doesn't move anymore.
Well, either that or that is one weak pharaoh
Yeah,
that some scotch tape is holding him all back from
yeah,
eternity.
a conservation grade film. They just put like a film on the bottom of it, and it sticks.
Yeah.
But you should have gave him bread and beer and seen what happened.
Well, or, obviously they probably should have sacrificed some people or something.
I wonder if they made him like that on purpose. To
To
like,
where?
I wonder if like the bump could have been like maybe they carved those things like that so that they would move over time.
Maybe.
I don't know. Now I'm just in pure speculation mode. But that's the spookiest from Egypt. So we got some from Germany today. We got some from Egypt. Mostly Germans killing people. Mostly Egyptians being spooky. And that's your
That was,
haunted archaeology.
I mean, there was some haunted archaeology. The bog stuff is really kind of freaky.
Yeah, the bog stuff is freaky. I want to look into those Nazi skulls. The sad part is that's such a new discovery. That was like 5 years ago, and like basically it looks like no one's ever done anything with it.
Yeah, that is a little weird that it's so recent and we're not doing more to figure that. That really makes me think that they either already know or they just don't want the answer because it's not going to fit into whatever narrative they're trying to create.
Yeah, or who knows? Maybe it's just like not interesting. Like some scientists might just be like, like I don't think it's a demon, so I'm not gonna waste my time on it.
Yeah, but somebody thinks it's a demon that's a scientist.
Oh, somebody, or they gotta at least want to get in some newspaper articles.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, even if you don't think it's that, like, where's the push to prove that it's not that?
I want to know what was in the briefcase too.
Also, yeah, what was in the briefcase? Is it like ritualistic, like instructions? Because that will be a dead giveaway that it's a demon. Or like if it's like a journal that says how to kill a demon, also dead giveaway that it's a demon.
Oh yeah, with like a picture or something that looks like that.
Yeah,
So that's my research for the week,
I like
Patrick.
it, man. That was some interesting,
Thank you. It
weird
was a bit of a
archaeological.
smorgasbord. I will direct people, although not all of this came from Heather Lynn's book. It was mostly structured off some of her chapters, but it's a much more in-depth book about demons and history and human sacrifice. And she seems very talented. I hope to maybe have her on the show one day or do some more stuff from her. But
We need
it
to
was
figure out who's got these demon skulls and like interview
get
them.
them
Like,
on the show.
yeah, like what's going on with these demon skulls, man? Well, first of all, they're not demon skulls. Do you know they're not demon skulls? Well, we haven't run any tests. Well, okay, then they're demon skulls until proven otherwise.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that
what
would
I'm
be.
thinking too.
Yeah, apparently yeah, the world's a crazy place. I yeah. I got nothing to say about that. It's
Well, thank
probably
you for putting this together this week, Dennis. Sparing my voice. It was good.
thank you, and thank you for being along for the ride.
Oh yeah, always.
I look forward. I hope you're better next week so I can hear what you've been up to.
I'm assuming I'll be fine and ready, and I'll have something prepared that's weird.
Yep, that's the name of the game. Well,
So,
everybody share, like, subscribe, listen to our other episodes. If you
yep,
just are newly on board, man, find somebody that you want to hunt demon skulls with and
that's
just
right.
live your best life.
Yes.
All
All
right.
right. Well, thank you all so much. We'll be back next week. Bye.
All right.